Hey everyone, it's Nick here. It's really great to be with you today, and I wanted to just share with you some of my thoughts on squatting today. So squatting is something as human beings we all should be able to do. It's like the ultimate rest position because our hips, knees and ankles are all at their end range of motion, and when you're at your end range it's like it can just sit in. And that's why in certain cultures, you see people and they're in that position all the time. And I think it's really interesting that 80% of people in the East can squat, full squat, heels down and be there for a long time, and 80% of people in the West can't. And that's because we don't do it. So in our culture, as soon as we go to school, we're then sat in chairs. We're never really encouraged to make that part of our day, and we lose it. And I am one of the people that has lost it. And I have worked on this a long, long time. And then I had a baby 6 months ago, and during my pregnancy, and then since, it's kind of gone again. And I thought, I see some of the other teachers and they all can do it really well and they add it into their classes. And I thought it might be just useful for you guys who are like me and maybe struggling with a squat to have a sense of how it might be to get better at it. Because for a long time, I didn't know how to get better at it. I thought just being here with my heels up was going to do the job, but it never ever got better until I discovered the idea of using, I've got a couple of yoga blocks here, but you could use a couple of hardback books or just one book, something like that. Because what's needed is, in this position, we're not loading the system in a way that allows it to start to learn to do something. So by having some blocks or some books, that's going to be really helpful. The other thing is, we need to do it. So I'm really trying to be mindful of this at the moment myself. It can't just be your once a week movement practice. It really needs to be something that you try and do every day in some way. So, being in a squat to write a text message, just one a day. Being in a squat to, talk to somebody instead of kind of sitting down. Could you just do that? So let's just think about, first of all, what is a squat and how do we make it more efficient for those of us who, like me, are not very good at it at all. I used to be a lot better, but like I said, post-baby, I'm now almost back to the beginning. I'm just going to be really honest about that. So I am not the perfect example of this, but what I've realized in teaching is probably about the stats, actually 80% of those I teach can't do it. So the first thing is, without any blocks to start with, if you were just to come into a deep squat, without too much thought, and you can let your heels lift up for now, but what's the first thing you do? So just do it a couple of times and then just think, what's the first movement I do here? Okay, and I know the answer to this and I'm doing it too. So for most of us, it's the knees bending. We do that and then we go down. And that's actually not the beginning of a squat. So the beginning of a squat is the hips moving backwards. So the hips move back, the sitting bones feel like they widen, and then the knees start to bend. And I'm already going further than I went before. Okay, now I'm starting to meet a bit of thoracic extension. That's a whole other conversation we could have because you need good thoracic extension here. And also I'm not so good at that post-baby either. But here we are. And then I'm noticing that my heels want to come up. I'm keeping widening my sitting bones. Wide, 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 wide. Oh, and I come down. And this feels very, very different. And then I stand down and come up. So can we practice that a few times? Can we practice the pelvis going back, the hips going back, widening the sitting bones, knees start to bend. So there's a feeling of knees go this way, hips, pelvis go that way. And look, I'm just getting more space, more space, more space, more space. I'm not wanting to collapse down. I'm wanting to kind of, look in front of me, still have a conversation with someone. I'm really waiting for the point where my heels pick up. There they are. I was a lot lower down this time than I got before, and here I am down here. Now, there's still a benefit in a heels up squat. I'm not saying that there isn't, but if you're like me and spent years in that position, why won't they ever go down? Then hopefully this is going to be for you. So, pelvis back, hips back, however you want to think of it. Sitting bones wide, knees bend. Got that opposites happening. And we go down, clunk, clunk, clunk. And the bones, like, they love it. My knees are, so here, like, my knees are really comfortable at end range. My hips are pretty comfortable at end range. My ankles definitely aren't. And, you know, there's a whole load of stuff I could probably be looking at to do with ankle mobility too, for sure. But just to keep it simple today. Now, come and grab either 1 block, 2 block, it doesn't matter. If you haven't got a block, the other thing you can do is kind of roll up the end of your mat. But what you want to be able to do is have a bit of height. Okay? So for most people, this works a treat. Okay, so I'm going to send the pelvis back, send the knees forwards. Wide, wide, wide at the back. And I can get down. And I'm not that far off, and I reckon I could probably have a half block, so you can get smaller blocks. And I'm going to be here, and I'm going to just bounce. Bounce, bounce, bounce. And just start to get this tissue loaded. Because if the tissue doesn't get loaded, if the bones don't get loaded, if I don't put myself in this position, like, how can it just suddenly find it? And then could I use that to spring up? Okay, pelvis back, knees forward. Here, bounce, 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 bounce. And up. All right. So now, I mentioned a little bit about thoracic extension. And thoracic extension in the spine is also very similar to rotation. So what can be helpful is if you need it, put a hand down, but you're going to take one arm and almost like you're just drawing a big circle. Circle round, come back, swap arms, reach forward, circle round, look, gaze, follow the gaze, come back. And just kind of like you're swimming backwards, or you're gazing behind you, or you're drawing a rainbow, whatever works. You're going to feel a little bit of rocking side to side. That's absolutely fine. That's what we want. But we're going to just open. And I'm already feeling that doing this, not so heavy on my arms. And if at any point you need to come up. And then go back into it. Come back. A few little bounces. And come up. All right. And that's your sequence, basically. Just if you need to, have a little bit of height. Like I said, you could roll up your mat. You could be on a half block. You could even just be on, if you had a big book, you know, sideways like this. And if you can, just spend like a minute a day here. Doing some bouncing, you know, you can freestyle, depending how creative you are. Just create some movement in the system. Get the system used to being at this end range so that suddenly this feels comfortable. This feels quite comfortable for me now. I could probably say I'll do one of my Instagram posts here. Maybe that could be my target for the day. I'm going to do one Instagram post a day, which I do, in this position. Maybe that would be something. Like, can you just build it into part of your day? Like, I am a big believer that when we do something like this, if we can build it into our day as opposed to it being a separate practice, then you're more likely to do it. So, come off, see how that feels. And yeah, I just thought that that would be a nice way just to show you guys how you, like me, we could all work together to perfect a full squat so we can be like Claire and Anthea and so many other people are where they can do it, and we can kind of join in with some of that fun. So if in those classes you see those moves, just grab a block and just use that to help you. I hope that's been helpful. I will see you guys again soon.